we got the man Jimmy Hyrule. He would never be able to find the next Steph. Maybe they don't exist.
Off the top of your head, of all the active players currently in the NBA, who reminds you most of Steph Curry? I'm sure some of the names that come to mind are Trae Young, Tyrese Halliburton, Kyrie Irving.
What the fuck? Tyrese Halliburton does not remind me of Steph, gang. Trae Young, and that's it. If that. What is we talking about? Trae Young and Damian Lillard, the only two people that I can say remotely remind me of Steph. Do not mention fucking Halliburton's name, bro. I fuck with Hallie, but no. He shoots some good deep threes, but their games are way too... But Hallie averages over 10 assists. That's a disrespect to Hallie, because he's such a good playmaker. Not saying Steph isn't either, but he does not pass as far as assist-wise like Halliburton, bro. What are we talking about?
If he was 9 inches shorter, try all you want, but the overwhelming and correct answer is no one.
Yeah.
Even as the catalyst to one of the biggest evolutions in basketball history, there is still nobody that is quite like Steph in the NBA today, or ever for that matter. The greatest shooter of all time by a country mile, as devastating off the ball as he is with it. The skills to carve up defenses and score from anywhere, despite being a relatively undersized, unathletic guard. By now, nearly a decade after the long ball took over the NBA, it was assumed that Steph's influence would spawn an entire generation of copycats. And although the game has changed, there's still no one that plays it the way he does. While aimlessly browsing through some stats not too long ago, it came to my attention that a 37-year-old Steph Curry once again led the NBA in three-point shooting last season for the 10th time in his career. The league is still trying to catch up to where Steph has been for the last 10 years. And with each passing season, the reality becoming more painfully obvious that Steph isn't a product of the league's evolution. The league's evolution is a product of him. And as long as Steph can do things that no one else can do, it may be a while before we find a worthy successor. But why is that? In fact, with a game that has become the blueprint for modern-day guards, why has there not been a single player in the NBA who plays like him or can do the things he can do? This series of questions led me down a long and exhausting rabbit hole of what I believe to be the most extensive look into this topic. Who is the most similar player in the NBA today to Steph Curry? Today's video is sponsored by Draft on the bets season basketball.
Curry puts up a three.
Bang!
When put to the task of finding the most similar player to Steph Curry, the first instinct would be maybe a long-range sharpshooter. But these comps never quite work. The best three-point shooters in recent history are far too one-dimensional on offense to be compared to Steph.
All they do is just shoot. Exactly. All these high percentage shooters, all they do is just shoot. Steph don't just do that, baby.
Look for perimeter players that can generate offense like Steph, and you'll find a lot of freak athletes, ISO-heavy guards, and players who aren't willing to run to hell and back like he does every other possession to get a bucket. This 2020 Bleacher Report article cited Mark Price, Pete Maravich, Steve Nash, and Jerry West as the most comparable players to Steph. All of them solid comps if they hadn't retired decades ago. CraftedNBA.com has a great tool called Doppelgangers, which uses an extensive batch of metrics to find similar players throughout the NBA. But this tool specifically looks at the results of a player's game without including the method in which they got those results, which is an important distinction. For example, Steph and LeBron both averaged the same amount of points last season, but the way they scored those points were wildly different. In our experiment, the method is just as important as the results. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands. And after countless hours of research, metric-based analysis, and data crunching in an attempt to answer this question, I think I've got it. An almost definitive conclusion on the most similar player to Steph Curry in the NBA today. And the answer may surprise you. First, I had to reduce the entire league down to players who had even an ounce of resemblance to Steph and his game. Floor generals, undersized guards, sharpshooters, off-ball merchants, great scorers, crafty perimeter players, players who love the three ball, and because, why not, his own brother. Eventually, I was able to narrow the list of players included in this experiment to about 75. Of those 75 players, here are the ones that eventually scored the highest in similarity to Steph. Now, how exactly did I quantify similarity throughout this process? Well, first I had to determine the metrics in which I wanted to measure. And here are those metrics: gravity, usage and creation, shot selection, portability, passing, defense, athleticism, dominance, shooting ability, and playstyle.
All right, let me see. Let's read off these real quick. So gravity, how much attention and resources a team uses to defend a player while on and off the ball. Steph has the ultimate gravity. He has more gravity than every NBA player ever. I don't care who you are. Don't care who it is. Put him against and see who has more gravity than Steph. Usage and creation, how involved the player is on offense, plus how much offense a player generates for their team. Steph is the offense. It ain't no question. Shot selection, the type of shots a player takes where they tend to take them on the court. Oh, Steph's shot selection is A1 steak sauce. He make a shot from there, make a shot from there, make a shot from there, make a shot from there. He makes a shot from everywhere. So what? There is no. It's an unlimited shot selection. Portability, how well a player can fit into any system with any group of players. He's literally the #1 pick in every NBA All-Star draft for a reason. He's literally can play with anyone. Can play with anyone. Passing, how often and efficient and effective a player passes the ball. Like I said, he's not Halliburton. He doesn't average 10 assists. But he does what's needed to be done from a point guard standard. He's a scoring guard who can play make with the gravity that he uses but within his shooting, but as well as that opens up other players because he draws so much gravity because of his shooting. He's allowed to pass the ball to the open players and people are more worried about him. So he has that in the bag. Defense, how valuable and versatile a player is on defense. Yeah, he's not the biggest guard out there. He's 6'3", 6'4" with shoes on. But guess what? I bet you didn't know Steph Curry's a 2-time steals leader. And you could say that's an empty stat because steals can be right player at the right time. No. He's a good / decent on-ball defender for his size. He has strength. He knows how to play passing lanes. Passing lanes is not just easy. It's an art and it's a skill. You have to know how to time passes, not to overjump them. If you do overjump them, now you're taking yourself out of the play, and now it's a 5-on-4, you know? And if you time it right, you got a free fast break. You got athleticism, how athletic a player is, specifically in explosiveness. Come on, bro. You know Steph's athletic. He has career dunks. He dunked the ball last year, gang. Relax. Dominance, how valuable a player is on the court to both on their team and relative to other players. Come on, bro. We don't got to explain his dominance. Shooting ability, the greatest ever. And play style, the role that a player tends to play in their habits on the court and usage by play type. He is a scoring guard that can create with the ability to shoot the ball from anywhere on the court, but as well as he still passes the ball at a high rate, and he has really good passes. Come on, bro. Give me Steph
10
all day
isolated
over
metrics
NBA,
that
bro.
factor in each and every aspect of Steph's game. Finding the similarities between him and any other player was the easy part. For example, take passing, which can be measured fairly accurately with passer rating, a metric that measures how frequent, effective, and efficient a player passes the ball. Steph's career passer rating is 6.9.
6.9,
That's pretty good.
exactly.
Jalen Brunson has a passer rating of 7.13.
He's just
That's even better.
Yeah, it's
Klay
good.
Thompson
That's what's
has a
up.
passer rating of 3.48. And that's
He
not
doesn't
so
pass as
good.
much.
To quantify just how similar these two players are to Steph in terms of passing, we just need to figure out how much their passer rating deviates from Steph's. In this case, Jalen Brunson's passer rating only deviates by 3.2%, while Klay Thompson's passer rating deviates by 49.5%. This would give Brunson a passing similarity score of 96.8% and Klay Thompson a similarity score of 50.5%.
That makes sense.
By using this method of measurement, I calculated the similarity score of every player in our experiment across all 10 previously mentioned categories, then I tallied up their score to find the most similar player to Steph. The player with the highest score after evaluating all 10 categories is of course the player who shares the most in common with him. So now you know the method, let's see the results. Now, the first factor we're going to be taking a look at is Steph's most valuable skill, his shooting ability. In a game where deciding who is the best at anything can be a tall task, Steph has
I think the two players that are going to come out top off of the shooting ability, I didn't even see Damian Lillard or, unless we misgrazed them, but Damian Lillard and Trae Young for sure should be the only two players on there. Maybe Tyler Hero could, you feel me, like he said, that could be in that relative spot. Those three players are the only ones that I can see that can match Steph's.
completely removed any room
Seth
for
Curry
debate
can
as the greatest
as well
shooter of all
with his
time.
percentage,
A skill set
but
so
Seth
valuable
Curry
that
doesn't
he
put up
altered
the
the
same
course of
amount of
basketball
threes
with
that
it.
Steph
And a
does.
skill that we can measure using crafted NBA
But those
shooting
other
quality
guys are
metric.
superstars.
It's a
They do
stat
those
that combines
things.
shooting
Damian
percentages
Lillard,
with spacing and shot value
Tyler
to find
Hero,
what they describe to be
and
the most accurate
fucking-
shooters in the league on a
what's
scale
his
from
name?
1 to
Those- they put
100.
up
For some
the amount of
perspective,
threes
no
that he can
player
do.
in NBA history has ever scored a perfect 100 out of 100 in shooting quality for an entire season. Except for Steph, who's done it 4 times. But
Wow, Steph's done it 4 times where he's had a shooting score of 100. He's just the great.
throughout his career, Steph has maintained an average shooting quality of 94.6. And the most similar player to him in the NBA today in terms of shooting ability is none other than his former Splash Bro, Klay Thompson, who has a career average shooting quality of 85.7 and a similarity score of 90.6%, followed closely by Desmond Bane.
Oh shit, I forgot about fucking Desmond Bane. Yeah. Well, this is just pure shooting, I guess, man. So we got Killer Klay off tops, which we already know. Killer Klay got that strap on him. Bane, bro. I didn't think about Desmond Bane. He be letting that rock off, huh? Peyton Pritchard, he got a strap on him, bro. We already know Buddy Buckets. Like I said, Seth, I expected Seth to be up there. Kyrie Irving be up there is kind of crazy. That's what's up. Kyrie Irving being number 6. Dame Dollar, KD. Emmanuel Quickly is a crazy pull.
Peyton Pritchard, Buddy Hield, and Seth Curry. Keep in mind, although I will only be displaying the results of 20 to 30 players per category, each individual score is being factored in and will be revealed at the end. But just as important as Steph's ability to shoot the ball is where he's shooting the ball. 10 years ago, there were 3 players in the entire league who averaged at least 20 points per game with a 3-point attempt rate of at least 40%. Volume scores off of volume threes. A shot diet that was essentially prohibited unless you were an absolute flamethrower. But thanks to Steph, times have changed. Because last season, there were 24 players around the league who averaged at least 20 a game while attempting at least 40% of all of their shots from beyond the arc. Steph laying out the roadmap for modern day shooters, with about 15% of his shots consisting of layups, 21% of his shots in the mid-range, and over half of all of his shots throughout his career being 3-pointers. And the most—
Now this is a breakdown right here. This is through his career. 14% of his shots are layups, 21% of his shots are middies, 52% of his shots are, bro, 52% of the shots Steph takes are threes, and he's deservedly so, because he's the greatest ever to do it. But god damn.
And over half of all of his shots throughout his career being 3-pointers.
And look at
the
that,
most
18
similar
and a
player
half
to Steph in the
defense.
NBA today in terms of shot selection is Tyrese Halliburton, with
What the
shooting
Hallie?
tendencies that virtually mirror Steph's and a similarity score of 94%, followed
Look
by
at Jordan
Anthony
Poole,
Simons,
chat.
Jordan Poole, and Patty Mills.
WJP3.
One thing I want to point out here is just how many young players compare well to Steph in this category. Guys who watch Steph at a young age and have skill
Yeah,
sets
they
that
see-
were more
they
than
see-
likely
they see him,
influenced
yeah.
by Steph. Which
Right.
brings up the next category and one of the most indicative measures of similarity from player to player. And that is play style. What role they play on offense, where they find the most value while they're on the court, and their habits both on and off the ball. Now, quantifying a player's play style is tough to do. What do you measure, and how do you measure it? Well, on craftednba.com, within each player's profile, there is a breakdown of their usage by play type. These plays range from ISO possessions, pick and roll as the ball handler and the roll man, the post, off-ball cuts, handoffs, screens, and spot up. These 8 play types are essentially the 8 major different roles a player can play on any given possession,
He's
and
a
we can use them
pick-and-roll
to get some
ball
insight
handler
into the habits,
with a
strengths,
spot-up
and weaknesses
transition off
of
the
each
screen.
individual player. In the case of Steph, the 4 most revealing characteristics of his offensive game are ISO possessions, spot-up shooting, possessions coming off of screens, and pick and rolls as the ball handler. Now, if we take these 4 play types and search for the player with the most similar usage across all 4, then the player that has the most similar playstyle to Steph is Devin Booker, who has
I
eerily
can see
similar
that.
usage to Steph across these 4 play types and easily the highest similarity score in
Devin
this
Booker-
category
Devin
of
Booker, I can see that.
84.8%, despite
They
not
have-
necessarily
and
being
I-
a player you would
And
assume.
that's probably why I genuinely enjoy watching like Devin Booker watching playing basketball. He's probably one of my favorite young guys in the league, honestly.
Associate with playing like Steph. The next most similar players are Emmanuel Quickly, CJ
If you play
McCollum,
like- if you
Jordan
play similar to
Clarkson,
Steph,
and
no
Cam
wonder I
Thomas.
like
For
it,
the
bruh.
most part, quick
Play
movement
like
shooters
Steph.
who play below the rim and operate best
It's
in
a
set
coincidence.
actions as opposed to isolation. Play styles that are necessary thanks to our next category, athleticism. Unlike
Yeah.
many of the top guards from his
He-
era, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, John Wall, Steph's lack of world-class
ain't
explosiveness has
jumping like
kept his
them
game
niggas.
for the most part on the ground and away from the basket. According to B-Spark, a metric that uses results from athletic tests such as the ones included in the NBA Combine to determine a player's speed, power, agility, reaction, and quickness, Steph ranks in the 28th percentile in
Damn,
terms of
28th.
athleticism in the NBA, or at least he was at the time he was drafted. And in terms of athleticism, the most similar players to Steph in the NBA today are D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Poole, with nearly identical B-Spark ratings to Steph's and similarity scores
Hey, if JP3 is the next coming of Steph Curry, I will be fucking mad because we traded him away because of fucking Draymond Green.
of 99.9%, followed by Peyton Pritchard, Luka Doncic,
But
and
shout out
Cade
JP3,
Cunningham.
man. We
Now,
fuck
our
with
next
JP3.
category has been one of the more underrated aspects of Steph's game throughout his career, and that is his defense. Where his athleticism and size fall short, Steph makes up for it on the defensive end with elite IQ, quick hands, and adding over 20 pounds to his frame throughout his career. In fact,
Look at
according
that
to
defense.
Crafted Defensive Plus
Y'all was
Minus,
talking
an
shit.
all-in-one advanced metric that measures how valuable a player is on defense, Steph is actually a net positive on the defensive end.
A net pot. See, I see y'all in the comments talking shit and hating. I saw y'all, motherfuckers. I saw y'all. This is why he plays defense, and he's a 2-time steals champion, nigga. He played defense.
Now, where Steph does struggle a bit is his defensive versatility. A target for switches and mismatches against larger guards and combo players, especially as the league continues to get bigger around the perimeter. Take these 2 metrics, Crafted Defensive Plus Minus and defensive versatility, and we can find out how valuable Steph is on defense and which player is most similar to him in this aspect, which in this case is Donovan Mitchell, with a similarity score
And he don't get nobody talks shit about DM defense. Nobody talks shit about DMs.
of 96% on defense, followed by Kyrie Irving, Austin Reeves, and DeJounte
Oh,
Murray.
Austin Reeves get
But
talked
whatever
about,
Steph doesn't
so-
do on the defensive end, he makes up for tenfold as arguably the most valuable offensive player in the history of the league. With his usage and creation, Steph has spent his career as one of the largest offensive generators in the league, both carrying offenses and playing within the offense.
Yeah.
And to measure this, we can use 3 different metrics: box creation estimate, offensive load, and usage percentage, where the player most similar to Steph will undoubtedly have to be an ultra offensive
LeBron. There's no way LeBron's not in this. LeBron or KD has to be, or Luka, because he said like they generate all the offense. Steph is our offense. That's why when he brought that up, I said he is the offense. He is off ball movements, off ball screens, fucking sets, down screens come up. You feel me? Off split screen, split action. All that shit is because of Steph, and Steph is the reason why we do all of that.
engine who can create opportunities not just for himself, but for his team. So it should be no surprise that when it comes to usage and creation, it is James Harden who is
Okay, I get that. I get it. He's averaging 45. I get it. I get it. I pay respect to James Harden, but I for sure was respecting LeBron or Luka. For sure was respecting that.
is most similar to Steph in the NBA today, with a similarity score of 98.9%.
Damian LaMelo. I mean, that's true. I mean, you got to think offense. You got to think offense, you know. I get it. Where's Luka? 17? Damn. But all these dudes do carry their teams or have carried their teams in the past and have done that. So I can see that for sure.
Identical to Steph's across the board. The next most similar players are Damian Lillard, LaMelo Ball, Ja Morant, and Cade Cunningham. Pair Steph's ability to create offense with his shooting, and you have a recipe for his game-breaking quality as a player. His gravity. It doesn't matter where he is or what he's doing. When Steph is on the court, he is a threat from anywhere at any time.
And that's what people don't
defenses
forget.
With and with
Your GOAT Magic Johnson, who you think is the greatest point guard of all time, buddy, he doesn't have gravity like this guy does. Nowhere near it.
without the ball and forcing them to get
not worried about
into
Magic
his
Johnson
every
doing
movement.
that, gang. We're not worried about Magic Johnson doing that and potentially tying the game up at halftime and swinging the momentum to the other team. We're not. I'm sorry.
Hence the term gravity, or as B-Ball Index describes it, how much attention and resources a team uses trying to defend a player while on and off the ball. You can see it in action every time you watch him play, as defensive schemes completely fall apart trying to track him around the court, send double teams when he's 30 feet out, and at times completely neglect other players altogether when the Warriors are running options for Steph. It's easy to see, but tough to measure. However, B-Ball Index makes an attempt at quantifying a player's gravity by using a few different metrics like double team rate, shot location, team shot quality, and tracking data with their on-ball and off-ball gravity metrics. Stats that are rated according to percentile relative to the rest of the league, and where Steph has career averages in the 95th percentile.
95 on ball gravity. What's the off ball? 94?
In on-ball gravity and nearly the 100th percentile.
What is we talking about? What is we talking about? We have nothing to talk about. We have nothing to talk about. This proves why he is literally the greatest player of all time. LeBron James is not here. Kevin Durant's not here. Magic Johnson's not here. Michael Jordan's not here. This is why Steph's the GOAT. Period. Period.
95th percentile in on-ball gravity and nearly the 100th percentile in off-ball gravity, making him not only one of the most lethal on-ball offensive threats in the league, but by far the most valuable off-ball threat in the league throughout his career. And among the players we are evaluating, the one with the most similar gravity to Steph is Damian Lillard, with a similarity score of 95.8%, followed by Kevin Durant, Tyler Hero, Cade Cunningham, and Devin Booker.
Damian
but
Lillard
gravity
is
holds a lot
that
less
guy.
weight if you aren't a
Dame
great
Dollar.
passer, as the defense collapses.
Dame Dollar is Dame Dollar for a reason. What are we talking about?
Is how well can you find opportunities that open up? And despite not playing the traditional point guard role throughout his career, Steph is an excellent passer, particularly in transition, in the pick and roll, and out of double teams. Of course, a good metric to evaluate passing skill is passer rating. This metric, similar to a few others, is on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best possible rating. Now, throughout his career, Steph has had a passer rating of 6.9, and the
It's not
player
bad.
most similar to him in this metric is Dennis Schroeder, who has a career
All right, we're getting compared to Shrewd Bumps. Nah, Jimmy, you could have edited that clip out, gang. This could have been left out. I ain't gonna lie. You could have skip passer rating. We didn't care about that, bro. We didn't need to get compared to the dude that's on the Sacramento Bums.
passer rating of
Sacramento Queens.
6.93 and a similarity score of 9.
Bro, you could have put Alex Caruso up there. That's a champion. That's a 2-time NBA champion right there, man. You could put Alex Caruso number 1. Could have snuck that in there. You could have edited that. You could have edited that and said Alex Caruso and capped a little bit. It's okay. We would have believed you if you said Alex Caruso. But Dennis Schroeder?
99.5%. The next most similar players are DeJounte Murray, Alex Caruso, Brandon Podziemski, and Damian Lillard. In this category, it's
What he just called pods?
Murray, Alex Caruso, Brandon Podziemski, and
Hey, Jimmy, you my guy, you my boy, and you probably won't ever see this video anyways. But it's Podziemski. Him saying Podziemski is hella funny because everybody calls him Pods, so he said Podziemski. Shout out the man Pods.
and Damian Lillard. In this category, it's not the floor generals,
Pod's
but
been top
rather
five is
combo
kinda
guards
crazy, though.
who
I
are the
appreciate-
most
that's nice.
similar to Curry.
Pod's
Add
got that
all of these
them
traits up,
dimes.
and you'll find why Steph is not just one of the most lethal offensive weapons of all time, but also one of the most portable. Steph has the skill set to thrive in any system around any players.
play-
It's one of the reasons why the
Steph can play on all 32 teams in the league. And I guarantee you, ask every single fan base, the ones that even hate Steph, would you mind having Steph Curry on your team? Would you take Steph Curry on your team right now, in the past, whenever? Would you take Steph Curry on your team? Everybody's saying yes. What is we talking about? Boston Celtics fans probably hate Steph. But they if they had the opportunity to have Steph Curry in any point in time of his career, they would say yes.
The Warriors have continued to find success throughout his career despite featuring an array of different players over time. Steph's value is virtually independent of his situation, and there's actually a metric that makes an attempt to measure this adaptability called portability. This metric collects data like passer rating, shooting ability, ball dominance, and usage, as well as defensive versatility, and calculates how portable a player is within any given system. In other words, how well would a player fit if you dropped him into a team with 14 random players?
Yep.
This metric also being on a scale from 1 to 10. Steph has a career portability rating of 9.18, one of the highest in NBA history, and the most similar player
can
to
play with
Steph in
anybody,
this
man.
regard is Mike Conley, who has the same
Ooh,
exact
that's
career
underrated.
portability
That's
rating as
underrated.
Steph with 9.18.
100%. That's underrated. Mike Conley, as much as I hated that Grizzlies series, he played his ass off and played very well, bro. That's underrated, bro. Mike Conley's very underrated.
100% similarity, followed by Desmond Bain, Tyrese Halliburton, and Jalen Williams.
What the
Which
hell?
brings up our last and most polarizing category, dominance. How good at basketball Steph is.
LeBron
A player can
James
shoot
probably
like
gonna be
Steph,
up in this
move the
one,
ball
right?
like Steph, play the same
We ain't
position
seen
as
LeBron
him,
yet.
but if they aren't dominating games like him, how similar to Steph Curry can they possibly be? And to measure dominance, instead of looking at accolades or accomplishments, we are going to look at purely how great they have been in their time in the NBA through the lens of an advanced metric, crafted plus minus. Now, this metric is an aggregate of 10 other advanced metrics. It's essentially an all-in-one of all the all-in-ones. It's just what we're looking for. And Steph's career crafted plus minus is 6.45, the 8th highest in NBA history.
The
The
8th.
closest player to Steph within our player pool in terms of dominance is Chris Paul, with a career crafted plus minus of 6.59 and a similarity score of 98%, followed by James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Luka.
I can see Chris Paul because he literally makes every team better that he goes to. Every team, there's a stat that shows the team that he goes to the year prior to him getting there and the year that he's there and what happens. And every team's win total has gone up every single season that he's gone to on every team he's been to.
Luka Doncic. And with that, we have now assessed all 55 players across all 10 categories. A process of research and number crunching that took me far longer than I'm willing to admit. But it was all worth
Sounds
it,
like hella
because in
math.
a league where Steph remains a unicorn, I think with very high accuracy, I have narrowed the search for the most Steph-like player down to one. After scanning a field of 75 potential matches across 10 different categories and
I was finna say, watch it be fucking Peyton Pritchard on some dumb shit. And Peyton Pritchard ain't even sniff Steph Curry's career. Respect to him. But like, bro, watch it come out to be somebody like that, bro. Real talk.
dozens of metrics, the most similar player to Steph Curry in the NBA today is Damian Lillard. which, as a Blazers fan that watched this man for over a decade,
I can see
completely
that.
adds up.
I
In the
agree.
end, Dame finished with an average similarity score of 82.71% across all 10 categories,
said Dame
finishing
Dollar.
just ahead of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant.
Yep,
All
KD.
names that
That's KD. I knew KD was gonna be up in there.
make sense, but for completely different reasons. Although there is truly no one like Steph in the NBA, both past and present, Damian Lillard
That's why we, when us as Warrior fans, when we fantasized and thought the ability to get Damian Lillard here in the Bay was just insane. Like, think about that. He said that's somebody that has the most similarity to Steph Curry, and he just said this is him as a Blazers fan, and I know he's probably happy as hell that he re-signed with them. But just thinking about him being able to be here as well, and yes, he's an undersized guard, and it would kind of hurt us on the defensive end as far as our backcourt being small with Steph and Dame. But with him having that, you see that score, that gravity. You can't have two players that. You see how high his gravity is. If Steph and Dame are on the same team, you can't. There's only 5 players on the court. You can't double him and double him. You can't. And they both can shoot from, like, you feel me? Like, the possibility of them both being on the same team together was just insane to think about. But I'm happy for Damian Lillard for him to be back home. All Wells wishes for Dame Dollar to continue to heal up. But just thinking about that possibility for that little bit of when people was talking about him leaving and being traded is insane. And Jimmy High Roller doing this video now is just even more insane to think about if Dame was on the team.
about as close as you're gonna get on the stat sheet, the eye test, and in skill set. And if we look at the results from this experiment, you can really get a full scope of all of these similarities, especially in gravity, passing, usage.
Gravity's at 95%. Steph's is probably around that same percentile. Like, you can't guard both of them. Look at the usage and shot creation. The shooting spots.
And creation and shooting ability. The only categories he didn't score well in were dominance and playstyle, which makes sense. As great as Dame is, the peaks of Steph's career have been about as high as any player in NBA history. Steph has a sizable gap on everyone in the player pool in this department outside of Chris Paul, Harden, Durant, and Luka. And in terms of playstyle, Dame works in isolation much more than Steph does. Some of this can be attributed to Dame's superior athleticism. You'll never see Steph competing in a dunk contest, but as his career has progressed and his explosiveness has declined, their games have become more similar with time. Lillard now less reliant on his athleticism as his skill set has gotten deeper and his range much further. Dame also prefers to initiate offense through pick and rolls as opposed to Steph, who will initiate the offense but works more off the ball during these actions to get open for a shot later in possessions. Tendencies that bring out the biggest differences visibly when you watch them play. But outside of these few differences, their games are strikingly similar in comparison to other players around the league. When I saw the results of this experiment, I couldn't help but to think of one moment during the 2021 All-Star Game, when Steph and Dame were going back and forth trading shots from half.
Exactly. It felt like it felt like the same person, low key, for real. Like, it was like, bro, who's who? They're just hitting these threes like it's nothing.
Court. If there is one man who can go blow for blow with the greatest shooter of all time from 40 feet out, it's Damian Lillard. A player who's hit so many clutch bombs, he has a celebration for it. And although one of Steph's superpowers is his off-ball brilliance, a clearer look into their similarities comes in moments when Steph really leans into his abilities to take players off the dribble and create his own shots. The key to their similarities being that they are both two of the greatest shooters of all time, but they aren't just shooters. They're offensive machines. Where most players who are capable of shooting at an ultra-elite level tend to neglect alternative scoring opportunities, Steph and Dame, although both being relatively undersized, are incredible at getting inside, collapsing defenses, and scoring around the rim, as well as creating open looks for their teammates. Very rarely do you get a player who is just as efficient and willing to score from inside 6 feet as he is from 26 feet. And almost never do you see a player that can do both at historic levels. I do think over the years, Steph has essentially market-corrected Lillard. Everything Dame can do outside of maybe ISO, Steph can do better. For years, I watched defenses break their brains trying to figure out how to stop a guy with a hair trigger and 35 feet of range. And I couldn't help but to notice there's only one other guy in the league that was capable of the same thing. Now, here are the full results from this experiment. With the 75...
That was like a crazy little saying right there that Jimmy had right there. He was like, I can't imagine being a Blazers fan and having somebody that's like, bro, this dude reminds me of Steph Curry so much. And then, like, not even just to talk shit or anything, but, like, you know, in the playoffs and stuff, Steph is literally known for owning the Blazers in the playoffs because he's knocked them out multiple times. Same with the Rockets. And, like, bruh, I can't imagine how that feels to be like, bro, he looks like Steph and plays like him so much. And it's like, you want him to be your Steph, but then you see him over there in the Bay just doing his thing.
5 total players involved condensed to the 55 with the highest scores. And there's a few interesting things going on here.
Look at Halliburton.
The top 3 finishers are all guards from the same era as Steph: Lillard, Harden, and Kyrie. All products of their era, playing a similar brand of basketball throughout their careers, even over younger players who shaped their game around Steph's. Kevin Durant, a 7-foot small forward, finished in 4th. The only 7-footer in the history of basketball that you could legitimately compare to Stephen Curry. But some surprising names that finished high were Fred VanVleet, Emmanuel Quickley, and Desmond Bane, who all finished in the top 10 while sharing different things in common with Steph. I also want to point out that Seth Curry, the man's own brother, finished in 42nd. Among the younger guys in the league, it was Tyrese Halliburton who had the most in common with Steph, finishing in 5th, followed by LaMelo Ball, Cade Cunningham, and Anthony Edwards. For the most part, it is the highly skilled and versatile perimeter players that have the most in common with Steph, even if aesthetically they don't necessarily look similar on the court. Players who are great shooters, create a lot of offense, have high gravity both on and off the ball, are about average defensively, and aren't freak athletes. Regardless of the way it looks, there are many parallels in the games of the most elite guards around the league, and Kevin Durant. And it's their abilities that lead them to a style of play that is similar to Steph's in one way or another. So, there you have it. In case you were wondering who exactly is the most similar player to Steph Curry, the answer is Damian Lillard. But let me know what you think. Was the method used to determine our outcome effective, or are there other metrics out there that could lead us to a more accurate conclusion? Let me know your thoughts in the...
I agree, 100%. We messed with Dame Dollar, man.